Welcome to our YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to explain how we can determine the financial feasibility for a coffee farming project. I will explain this based on the coffee farming financial feasibility model template from eFinancialModels.com. What we need to do is to specify the yields of the lands under management and the expected planting and harvesting schedules for the coffee. In this model template, we have a comprehensive framework to basically calculate the projected financials, and also we have all the operating costs and then also the breakdowns available to us. What we do first is that we need to specify which are the lands we are going to plant the coffee. So we have here various lands under management. They are either owned or they are rented. They have different sizes and have been acquired or will be acquired in different years. Once they will be acquired, this can also lead that there will be investments. So we have to account for those which in the future will lead to capex expenses, and we can do this by estimating what will be the expected cost per hectare to acquire those lands. In case these lands will be rented, then instead of capex expenses, we can enter what will be the expected rental expenses. Now for coffee, this depends, the harvest schedule depends on when the trees are being planted. Then there's a time they need to be grown, they will not be productive, and then after a certain period of time they can be harvested. So we have here different schedules where we can determine when these lands are going to be planted, if that's a new planting or a replanting. If it's a replanting, it means that if the land is available to us before the planting date, that we can also get yields from this area. Then we have to define the date or the month when the growing activities start. That has to do with the cost. This triggers all the costs for herbicides, for fertilizers, labor, etc., etc. So we need to know when do these activities start, and we need to know the year where we can expect the first harvest. Then once we have this defined, we can then go into the yields. In this case, in this model, it's done quite straightforward. You can enter a base yield assumption. If there is any change or future yield improvement, you can model this as annual expected improvements. We have a tab here which models the yields. In this case, we can determine in which months the harvest will occur, in which year months normally the harvest will occur. So you can enter this here, and we can also adjust if we see that this base yield, that some of the lands will do better or worse. So what we can do is we can adjust by entering the percentages here. 100% means that is the value which will result. It's our base assumption. If it's lower or higher, it will be multiplied. And then we can see what will be the annual production volumes. This is done in tons here, and what will be the harvested areas which will be forecast. And as you can see, in this model we can simulate an increase of the expected harvested areas. Once we have the yields, we need to work through the prices. Coffee can come at different quality levels, so we have here, we need to make an estimate in terms of the volumes, what will be the volume split for class A, B, C, D coffee, and then we can also enter different pricing assumptions and also their expected pricing outlook. Once we have volumes and prices, then we can deal with costs. In terms of direct costs, we have to look at the costs at time of planting. These are one-time costs, mostly for seed, but also for labor. We have here placeholders in there, and two types of costs can be modeled. We do this on a per hectare basis. We then can also enter the time lag for start of the growing and start of the harvesting, and then also define what will be the annual base costs for for the tree care activities, and we can enter these cost assumptions. The same again at time of harvesting and time of processing. Now again, these assumptions are very general, so in case we want to adjust them on a more specific plot by plot basis, we can do this here. The first input is that we have to define in which months these costs occurs. So we can go through area by area, what are the percentages of the annual cost which will occur. We have then to define if these costs stay the same at our base assumptions, or if they, many times they have early on they have higher costs and later they have lower costs. So we can adjust this by entering a factor. And then we can check if our assumptions make sense. What will be the cost per hectare for, in this case, fertilizer? What will be the cost on an annual basis for these lands? And we can work through all of this for the different cost types during the growing activities: fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides, hopefully not too much of all those, and whatever is needed to get the coffee up to the harvest. Then once we have defined that, we can go further. We have to look at what other costs will occur. We have talked about direct costs. Now what we also have to look at are employee costs. Here we have indirect costs for the overhead. These are these assumptions. Then we have direct labor costs, social insurance. So we can all enter our costs here. We can then calculate what is the direct labor required. But also we have to account for indirect labor, so that we can also add this here, what will be the expected personnel plan. So we can work through all the labor costs. Once you have the labor costs, then we can also work through all other operating costs. And as you can see, one can change the labels in this model. We can change the labels here, and we just would have to work through what for a specific project, what will be the specific cost positions, and enter them here. And then these costs will have different budgets, which then need to go into the forecast. Then the next topic will be the capex. So for land acquisition, we can take the calculated figures from our land sheet, which will tell us in which year the acquisition will occur, and therefore we can calculate the expected capital expenditures. And for all the rest, we can manually enter what will be the expected investments to be taken into account. Then once we have all this in this model, that will basically lead to monthly and yearly schedules. What might, for a coffee farm, it can be quite detailed. So in this case, it's a bit summarized, but actually we can track each area, what will be the expected harvest volumes, and also each cost that we can check what will be the cost by area. For instance, here for the planting, for the labor, etc., etc. So we can, in this model, we can either go at the high level or at the detailed level, and we can check if this forecast makes sense. Then these figures are aggregated into yearly figures. Just to show you the results here. This will be the tables which a bank or investors would like to see. They want to understand what will be the projected revenues, what will be the projected profits in terms of EBITDA, what will be the expected balance sheet, the cash flows. And they want also to, especially banks, they will calculate the resulting debt ratios, and they will also want to be comfortable that your forecast will not lead to any problems. So that's good to have here as well. And then for also for a profitability analysis, we want to know how much profit we can this project will do on a per hectare basis. Here we can calculate what will be the projected harvested area, and then we can see what this means in terms of revenues, in terms of direct costs, gross profit, the profit. All this is broken down on a per hectare per harvested area basis, so that we can become a better idea how our cost structure will look like, what are the risks, and what is the expected financial performance for our project. Then what we need to do is to go back and prepare an executive summary, which basically summarizes all the financial schedules and then calculates the project metrics. We want to know if you do this project without using debt financing, what will be the expected IRR, project payback period, expected profits, all this we want to know. And if you use debt financing, if that changes the feasibility a bit. So these figures, they all need to be in a comfortable area so that the feasibility of such project is given, and for the risk that the return compensates for the risks. Of course, there are many more details to consider. If you have a model template like this, it's a bit easier to prepare all this and also to obtain a solid understanding how the expected financial performance might look like, and also to provide investors and banks with a forecast which they can understand and shows them the figures they are looking for. So I hope this walkthrough was useful. If yes, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and visit our website eFinancialModels.com. A link to the model is included in the description below. Thank you for watching.